Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Always On Point podcast here with Kristen Ambos and presented by myself, partnered and hosted with my parent company, Point Mortgage. So we're so excited to have you here for those of you tuning in. If you haven't gone back to episode 1 of the first season, I would encourage you to do so. We've talked about all different things, and we're going to keep talking about all kinds of different things when it comes to mortgages, real estate, interest rates, all the things. Better to just get you the info that you can. And what we do is we cut through the noise. That's the main goal here, is to be transparent, cut through the noise, give it to you straight so that way you can take it and use it from there that you need. So the one thing I realized that we haven't done on this podcast yet that I wanted to, and I even have some trusty notes to make sure I didn't miss anything today, but is walking through how a mortgage application works and the timelines. So just to date myself a little bit, back when I started in mortgages, it wasn't unheard of for a 45 to 60 day close. You had a lot of time to get the appraisals ordered, get everything ordered, title work, insurance, get documents, meet with the clients, all those types of things. Now, I will say then nothing was automated. Everything would, you had to come in, drop it off, scan it, email it, fax it, those types of things. But faxing was more prevalent than scanning and emailing at the time. So what happened a lot is we met with clients 2, 3, 4 times during the loan process of that 45 to 60 days. You really got to know somebody. I'm not going to lie, I missed those days a lot for that reason. Automation is always exciting and speeds things up, which is wonderful. And we do utilize that just as much as the next loan officer and lending team does. But what it does is it does take away some of that trust factor, some of those components where you learn who somebody is, you learn how they work, and you learn how to trust each other, consumer to loan officer and vice versa. With that being said, the other thing that automation does is speed things up, which is great. Right now, as I sit here filming this, I would say an average turn time for a loan file right now is somewhere between 17 and 20 days. So going from 45 to 60 to 17 to 20 is a huge jump. And therefore, that's why a lot of loan officers have teams now, because they can't, what we consider, cradle to grave, the loan from when we meet with the client through pre-approval, through accepted offer. There's not enough time for one person to do all of that. And you've probably heard me say that through the years of discussing, and I feel grateful. I've built an amazing team. I've actually built more than one, and people move on for different reasons and different chapters of their careers. And I'm fortunate that I keep landing on some of the best to, get to work with. And right now, the team that we have is and never been more aligned as far as what we're doing in our step-by-step process, making it extremely valuable to our clients. A ton of communication, a ton of understanding. Now, are there some extra people involved in that? Yeah, there are, because there have to be. We can take now 2, 3 times the client calls that we could on earlier in my career, because I would be the only one managing all the calls, calling them back. And now my team is just as aware as I am, and they can help answer all of those. So today, for example, I was calling a client back that called me, and he was on the other line with Nicole on my team walking through, but he felt so grateful because he not only had one of us, he had 2 of us, and he had Sam and Kimberly through the process. So he felt very taken care of, which is our main goal. Now, with automation, we do say comes speed, then that equals teams. What that doesn't mean, though, and I want to be very clear about this because I think this is where some people think it's similar, but it's not, is the mortgage process is still more tedious than purchasing a car, for example. And I think a lot of people feel like in their head, that's what they're doing. They're walking in, they're doing an online application, they're getting approved, they go buy the car, they drive away that day. Maybe a 24 to 48 hour process if it needed to be. We still need at least that 17 to 21 days. There are some loans that are super clean and just go fast and we can close them in, 1 to 2 weeks. Yeah, those do exist. But the reality is that more people have more stuff, which takes more time. And we want to be involved with that as much as we possibly can. So walking you through how it works to get a mortgage, pre-approval and accepted offer, all the way to a clear to close. So let's say this is the quickest of turn times that you've got, and you come in and today we meet. You bring me your documents or you scan and email them to me, not even email them, you upload them to our secure server because we want your documents to be safe. But you email me, we discuss setting up an appointment. We either do that via Zoom or we do that in person. You come in, we get the application just buttoned up, make sure everything is accurate to the data that was put in, double check your documents, double check your pay stubs for your income, your W-2s. If you're self-employed, we might need an extra day or so, depending on how self-employed you are. And why I say that is because some people have a simple little Schedule C within their personal taxes, very easy to calculate. Some have 1120Ss with multiple partnerships and multiple LLCs and multiple rental properties. Those self-employed taxes do take a little longer to go through. So just so you're aware, but we get those. We pull credit, we establish the pre-approval into the application. Everything is all set. My team is structured and we are trained to do everything up front. We want to be as accurate as we can in the pre-approval to see it all the way through to the end. So that's where we're a little bit different. Why that's a benefit to the borrowers is because you go into making an offer feeling completely satisfied, understanding your payment, understanding the funds you're going to need to close, and what this looks like. We walk you through everything. Now, after you get your pre-approval, you go home shopping. You go home shopping, and let's just say you found a house you got pre-approved on Friday, found the house on Saturday, put in an offer on Sunday, by Monday it was accepted. Those things do still happen. Not everybody has that success, but more than you'd think, I think, if that makes any sense. So with that being said, you get the accepted offer. You or your agent are going to send my team that fully signed, fully executed accepted offer. We're going to go back into your application. We're going to make sure that your application has everything exact to the offer that we've been given. All the schedules are received. All the numbers are in there so that we can just tie up, put a pretty little bow on the really high-end estimates that we can get you based on the home you have an accepted offer on now. We're also going to go over with you the locking of the interest rate. We're going to lock that interest rate. You guys, right now, with the market being as volatile as it is, you want to lock as soon as you possibly can. You want to take care of that floating. Right now, in my opinion, this is not a floating market. This is a rate lock market. And when you lock with the right lender, you can always look to renegotiate your interest rate should they fall later on. Not all lenders do that, so you want to make sure yours has the opportunity to do that if that works. So we lock in your interest rate. We set up the loan. We lock in your interest rate. We go over with you again those high-end estimates. And why I call them high-end is because we are using numbers to a T as much as we can with that accepted offer. Now, mind you, we're also then going to send you disclosures to sign. You're going to go through and you're going to validate that everything we discussed via in-person and in an email is now showing up in your documents. That's 3 ways for you to verify and hear it so you feel completely comfortable. We're never just going to send something to you and blindside it. We're going to call you and go over it. We're then going to email it to you, and then we're going to have you sign it. From there, once you sign that mortgage initial application, that does not tie you to anything. However, it does give us permission to then bring it on, get it into our processing and underwriting department. You're also going to sign what's called an intent to proceed, which is an incredibly important document. This is telling us that you do intend to proceed with our loan with our company. From that moment on, we're going to order the appraisal. We're going to order the title work, and we're going to ask you to get on your homeowner's insurance quote. We're going to need that information. Now, each one of those comes with an invoice from a third party, hence taking you back to high-end estimate. We don't use lowball estimates so that you like our numbers better before you lock in. We're going to give you the high-end estimates, which is going to be as exact as we possibly can to your new home. That means the correct taxes, the estimate of actual homeowner's insurance, as well as what is the title work really going to cost? What is the appraisal really going to cost? Those types of things. Because those invoices can change depending on the property you buy. An appraisal invoice will change if you're buying a 2-unit versus a single family. It'll also change if you're buying an investment versus a single family because the investment needs what's called a rent schedule. So the appraisers tack on more because they're doing more work on that property. So some of those things can change the invoices, which once we know the property you're going to buy, we can update those costs to you accurately. From there, like I said, we're going to process and order all the title, insurance, and appraisal. Appraisals right now, as I film this, are taking about 10 business days. So that's about 2 solid weeks. So just keep that in mind. If you're an agent, keep that in mind to when you're telling us to order it or hold off from ordering it. We've got a lot of agents and clients asking us to hold off on the appraisal right now, especially if there's a sales contingency involved. If the house is selling, if the buyer who we're working with is also selling a house, they typically want to see that house gets sold prior to us ordering to make sure everything comes intact. So just make sure. This is where I can't tell you enough as an agent. Communicate with your lender. As a client, communicate with your lender. The full circle of communication we have, the better off it is for everyone, okay? Now, let's say we've got all the documents from the client. Everything is signed. We've got a title invoice. We've got an insurance quote. Still waiting for the appraisal, which could be typical at this point. We've got all the pay stubs, all the income documents, all the assets. We're going to now submit that to underwriting. Once it goes into underwriting for a loan approval, remember, your loan officer pre-approves you, and if they're pre-approving you correctly, they should be thinking already like an underwriter, getting all the documents in their file up front so that the underwriter has a very easy job, and that is to double check the work that you're doing. Then they give back what's called a conditional loan approval. Now, those conditional loan approvals will say, I'm missing page 2 of your 4-page bank statement. Typically, that wouldn't happen, but just giving you an example because we need all 4 pages of your bank statement, not just the first piece. A page that typically will go missing is something either in the taxes, if we need full taxes, or a child support order, divorce decree, something like that, because they're large documents. So maybe documents get sucked in twice in the scan. Maybe it just, is a front and back and we miss the back of a page, something to that. So they double check that. They're also going to condition us for a final insurance policy, the appraisal that needs to be approved yet, and the like. So that's what's called a conditional approval. I also want to go through the timelines and the estimated timelines that are something that you guys should understand. The pre-approval, depending on how in-depth it is, shouldn't take more than 1 to 2 business days. Maybe 3 if we're missing documents and have to keep coming back to you, okay? But that should really only be same day, 1 to 2 days. Home shopping, man, that is just going to depend on how picky of a buyer you are, not, and what you find in the market when you come onto the market. So home shopping can take all of a weekend, or it could take 6 months, sometimes a year. Be patient. That's okay. We can keep updating your pay stubs and W-2s or bank statements to make sure you're still qualified even during that time. From the accepted offer to getting the initial closing disclosure package for the consumer or the buyer to sign, 3 days. That is by regulation, 3 days. From there, you sign it. We typically ask that you sign those documents and within 24 hours, get it back to us. That appraisal, title, insurance will be ordered. So technically, if you get the accepted offer on Monday, by the end of that week, Friday, we've got a fully signed loan package. We've got appraisal, title, insurance all ordered, and we've got your file fully processed going into underwriting. It can happen that fast. Now, on a slow week, because we're waiting for clients to sign their documents, or we, have a longer closing date than necessary. Sometimes the title won't give us title within 30 days. So if it's a 45-day close, then we have a little bit more time on that. But the reality is 3 to 4 business days for that process should be more than enough. From there, processing usually takes about 24 to 48 hours, and then it goes to underwriting. Purchase underwriting takes another 24 to 48 hours, and we get your conditional approval. So putting all that together, we're going off of when you get the accepted offer. 3 days for initial disclosures, 2 days for processing, 2 days for underwriting and getting a conditional approval. That's 7 business days. So that's 1 week. That's not bad. what we're typically waiting for during this process is getting that title work back from the title company, depending on how busy they are. Getting that appraisal back, like I said, could take up to 2 weeks, 10 business days, and then any other documents we need from the clients. Technically, if everything in a perfect world goes right, that second week we get the appraisal, everything is clear to close, we can sign off on that and close within that, 15, 17 business days. Let's be more realistic. That's not every file. That's a good amount, but the majority of files have multiple documents. Maybe we have a divorce decree. Maybe we have a child support order. Maybe we have one or two of each of those things because people have been married more than once or had children with more than one partner. And we need all of those documents. We are not snooping on them. We need them because we need to know if you, our buyer, are the recipient of any funds out of those two circumstances, child support and divorce, or if you are the payee and you are paying on behalf of the MSA or the child support order. Those things matter to our debt to income ratio, and that's why we get them. So we put everything in place. Now, if the appraisal takes a full 2 weeks, title takes another week, that's not unheard of for a closing to take 20 to 25 days. So the realistic piece of this is 30 days is still a pretty average number, right? Some take longer, some go faster. However, I think if you're a lender in this business right now, you should have teams and processes built that shouldn't take you more than 3 weeks. Where do I say that and where do I think those things lie when they're more than 2 to 3 weeks? Brand new construction. 9 times out of 10 is going to have a pushback. Let's say the inspection, you have you have a home inspection on the property and there's some items for a seller to sell or a seller to fix, not sell, seller to sell, but seller to fix and provide paid receipts for that work to be done. That's where things start to take a long time because now we are, we might need contractors to come in and fix things. We might have to send the appraiser out more than once. We might have a title issue where somebody has a lien or judgment we didn't know about. Those types of things. Those things can come up, and that's why we need time to clear those items. So again, the more paperwork and understanding you can give your loan officer upfront, the better. The one thing that I think is happening more often than not is, well, the loan officer didn't ask for it, so that must mean they don't need it. So I'm not going to tell them about it. But I'm here to tell you we will find out, always do. And then it's going to come up in what I love real estate agents to say, the 11th hour. For those of you that can't see me, you know my lovely air quotes. So typically is the 11th hour. Why are we finding out in the 11th hour when a lot of times I'm finding out in the 11th hour too? So I couldn't have prevented it if I had no idea it existed. And even when I ask all the right questions, sometimes people still see it differently. Let me give you a perfect example. We have an application. We have a loan process. We're going through everything super fast, super accurate. The client is getting us stuff. The agent's getting us stuff. We are moving. We are so excited until we hit a wall. The wall was, we said to our client, we pulled title and there's another property in your name. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And she said, I don't own another property. We said, okay, is it a name affidavit? Is it not your property? It's showing you are on the deed of this property. And she responded with, well, yeah, I'm on the deed, but I don't own it. When you are on the deed of a property, you own that property. You are an owner of that property. So in her head, she did get that property from a relative, a parent who passed away. She was deeded on it. But she still saw that property as her mom's property, her parent that passed away. We look at it objectively and say, you own a property and now we need the taxes and insurance on that property, even if it's free and clear, because technically you own it and you are responsible to make sure those property taxes get paid and that homeowner's insurance gets paid. We have to add that to your debt to income ratio. And even in explaining that She still didn't understand it that way. I don't believe she was being malicious. I don't believe that she was trying to hide anything from us. I think she truly, in her heart of hearts, did not think she owned that property, but she does. And so we needed now all those documents, which can change our loan process. So even though we asked her multiple times, do you own any other property? The application asked, do you own any other property? She said no, when really she did. So these are things that find out along the way. Another perfect example of something that you can find out along the way, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac require, and it is a hard line, that if you are buying a home as a primary residence, that you have to be living there within 60 days. That has to be your primary residence within 60 days. If we don't know that there's a lease agreement in there in that property, whether it's a single family, a 4-unit, a 2-unit, an 8-unit, it doesn't matter. If you are going to move into a unit, but all the tenants are in there for over that 60 days, we cannot close on it as an owner occupied. Like I said, Fannie and Freddie have a really hard line in that. So does FHA, USDA, WHEDA. All of these are owner occupied, and the regulation says that you have to be within 60 days. Now, when did we find that out? We find out on the appraisal schedule. The appraisal has the rent schedules. Remember, the rent schedules tell us when the lease agreements come up. Had we known that and had the buyer simply didn't think we needed to know. Again, he wasn't being malicious. He didn't know. So when I asked him about when he was moving in, he was like, well, in 6 months. Then I can't finance that as an owner occupied. When I asked the agent, it was, why would I know that? So these are things that both listing agents should make sure they're asking their sellers, if there's tenants in there, when are the lease agreements up? Because then we should be marking that somewhere in either the MLS, in the notifications, in the remarks, something to state when those lease agreements are up, because that completely changes a buyer's financing. Now, with that said, if you are buying it as an investment property, you also can't pretend to live there because that is another one where they will hardline it. It's an investment property. So there's different investment programs out there where they cannot be owner occupied. So those change the things we need to know. I had one last week where we were giving them a $4,000 earnest money credit for the whole time because the offer said that there was $4,000 earnest money. When we asked, because we never saw it clear the bank statement, where did the earnest money go? No one knew, the listing agent side and the buyer's agent side. No one looked at it early enough to make sure it cashed. It did not. So what happened? We had to get an amendment, take it off the offer, and then the clients had to bring in $4,000 more to close than what I had been telling them because that earnest money never cleared. These are things that can go through the loan process all the time. And I don't think anyone is maliciously doing this to anybody, but when you start moving at record pace and you're being piecemealed stuff instead of all together, things fall through the cracks. And things like this happen. Bad things happen to good people. And it is not an intention. It is because there's that much documentation that we need. So that's where we're different than buying a car. My husband and I just bought a vehicle and we never even had to give him a pay stub. That is not the mortgage world. It takes time. Loan programs change. Interest rates change. Things can change in the blink of an eye when anything changes with that purchase. And that is why I can't circle back enough to saying communication will be and always be the most important part of a mortgage loan. You can't trust just anybody to do that. You have to have a team that you trust, a buyer's agent that you trust, a lending team that you trust, and knowing that that buyer and lender work really well together. Because when they work well together, anything is possible. And you will close fast and you will keep things on time and your expectations will be met because they will also be communicating with you on the whys and the whereabouts so that no surprises happen on your end either. So super important for me to engage in this and just walk through that process with you because there is a lot to it yet. And this is why tied up in a pretty bow, mortgages will not start to default the way they did in 2008 and 10 because we are still getting way too much paperwork for the housing industry to ever collapse based on the financials. It will never collapse based on mortgages. Did it once. We put in all these regulations for a reason, and that is to protect you. So as annoying as they are, as fast as you want to go, and sometimes that's just not possible. Thank you, Amazon. We still need certain timelines and dates to get things done. We need to meet all of this, and this is the whole process. So if you can work with a loan officer who can walk you through that entire process and commit to you, you're probably with a pretty good loan officer. They can't commit all of that to you, and you ask them up front, and they can't say exactly who's going to be looking at the loan at this time, when, where, and why, and how. Get a second opinion, because this is where the communication comes in. It takes almost 20 minutes to explain the why, and I'm somebody who does it every day. So for you listening, I can imagine how your eyes are circling right now in confusion. Let's break it down. Let's continue to break it down. Take bite-sized pieces so that you can understand it. Thank you, everybody, for listening again today. We appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. Don't forget to go over to any of my social media channels where you can see shorts on these things as well as YouTube. We're everywhere that we think our clients and our real estate agents are, because we want to better assist and educate you so that you can make the most out of all of your sales and purchases. Thank you. Hope you guys have a great day. We'll see you next week.